So we have the beautiful Sarah Mays here, another legendary soul who I've come across on the big world wide web and finding magical people like herself. And essentially, Sarah works as an abstract artist and as a writer with a passion for sharing real life creative stories and making her art along the way. So it's like this beautiful natural byproduct of what she gets to do of living her passion. And she writes about embracing imperfection and using our fears to become better artists. And I think something that when I hear artists, my mind initially goes to drawing, but I think what Sarah is going to reveal in our chat, I just have a feeling that art is so much more than just painting and figures. And a lot of her focus comes to translating her emotions and specifically translating her memory and feelings of nature and culture, which is something that I've just, when I read her bio, I was like, oh, this just speaks to me in so many ways, more than one. And so I would love to let Sarah speak for herself and really just introduce your background of where art has come into your life and whether it's been something a part of you since you were born or whether it's been something that you've developed along the way.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah. I am specifically an abstract expressionist, and that just kind of means that I express myself artistically through gestural marks and brushstrokes and movement when I paint, and so my paintings are just as much about the emotion that I'm communicating and the way that I'm communicating those emotions on the canvas as it is about the colors that I use and the shapes that you see and the forms that I make. So for me, I've always been a creative kid. Like I was always the kid who was dancing and singing, and I was really into theater, and I was a lip syncing genius for about 10 years of my early childhood.
Can we have a lip sync battle, please? Just like in the middle of this.
I'm not so good now.
Come on, girl.
I was really good when I was younger. You know, I used to pride myself in entering the competitions and coming in first place. And I just loved dancing and singing and expressing myself in that way. And what I was kind of addicted to when I was younger is the look on people's face when they were like, what's this child doing? You know, I loved it.
Now it's like, what is this adult doing?
Yes. My parents were like, what are we watching? What are we watching this child do? So what I've always loved the most about expressing myself is sharing with other people and talking about like why art is so important and why it empowers people, specifically why now this point in my life, why it empowers women and how art can help to empower women. And I went through a very bad relationship, and it really hurt my self-worth and my self-respect and the way that I saw myself. And then backing up quite a bit of time, I did go to art school, and I went to art school for photography, and I had a part-time art business, and quickly realized that was not my jam. That was just not, I love photography so much, but the business aspect of it just drained me and made me not feel creative in any kind of way. And so I've stuck with photography, but I primarily take, urban landscape and landscape photos with, some fun stuff thrown in here and there. It's kind of my inspiration, being out in nature and seeing people and sort of photojournalistic kinds of photography really inspires me. So after I kind of got out of that relationship and decided I didn't want to be a photographer anymore, I just kind of had like a crisis of self, I guess. I just was kind of in a place where I thought, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Like, I was at that point, I was in my mid-30s, and I just thought, I got to figure this out for myself, because I'd had an identity for so long that now had changed completely. And I'd always been, like I said, a creative kid. I'd always been pretty spunky and really into expressing myself. And I had done photography, and I had found my people when I went to art school. And I was like, this is what I love. And so I had never, ever picked up a paintbrush and decided I want to do abstract art. It just came to me at a point in my life when I was really figuring out who I was as a person and figuring out what I wanted to share about myself and how I wanted to express myself. And I just sort of took to abstract expressionism naturally as a way to almost journal my feelings on a canvas with paint instead of just writing them in a journal, which I do that as well. But it became sort of an outward expression of everything that I had going on in here. And I do suffer from anxiety, and so that also was a way for me to get it all out. And it's the only time I ever found in my entire life that everything that was in my head disappeared. And I was just focusing on being in the artistic flow and feeling the process of myself making something and feeling free in my brain to not constantly have a reel of all that I've done wrong, or all that I've messed up, or all that I could do or can't do, or all the things that go along with anxiety.
Right.
And that was really when I decided, okay, this is something special. This is something I want to do. This is something I want as part of my life for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And because for me, it helps me realize who I am, and it helps me embrace everything that I am, flaws, all of that, if you want to consider it flaws. Everything that I am, and I can put it on a canvas and you can see it. You can see this is what I was thinking. This is how I moved. This is, and that's the other thing I love about abstract expressionism is you can, when you study a painting and you look at an abstract expressionist painting, you can see their gestural marks and how they moved the paint, how they, used a pencil or some other kind of medium to run across the canvas or board or whatever their substrate is. And it's a really beautiful way to see someone's expression of their inner being, their innermost thoughts, expressions, and also, you can often see, this part right here is joy. This part right here is somber. This part right here is, really, really dramatic. And this part is quiet. And so it's a really interesting way to communicate to people. And so I just have stuck to it. And it's turned into something that, I didn't anticipate it becoming a business. I didn't anticipate it becoming something I do for money, but a girl gotta eat. So,
a girl gotta pay the rent.
right.
And you gotta buy your paint.
What's that?
You've got to buy your paint as well.
This is true. This is true. So it's just it's hard for me sometimes to put it into words how much it means to me and how much I love it and how much it has become, the biggest part of my life that I'm most proud of, actually, that I am most connected to. And, because sitting here like with you and having a conversation, you see one way that I'm communicating, and you can only see, my facial expression and the way that I use words or the kinds of words that I use, that kind of stuff. But when you see something like on a canvas that I create, you see me in a different way entirely. And, there's been a lot of artists who I follow and who contemporary artists and even artists, from 50 years ago who are abstract expressionists. And you could look at their work and then look at them and go, I would never have guessed that person talked like that, looked like that, communicated like that with their physical being, looking at their work. And that to me is just so inspiring and interesting.
You know what it reminds me of so much, because my background is in like all of the yogic teachings and whatnot, and it honestly sounds like you reach a point. Sorry, I had to take my glasses off. I feel so disconnected when I have them on because it creates that barrier. But yeah, it just sounds like you reach a meditative state in a way where it becomes so clear of what the message is. And it's like you could almost get out of drawing the painting and go, did I do that? Because it almost doesn't feel like you, but it also feels completely like you, because you come back to the body and it's like the body is filled with, you know, you've got your certain lips, you've got your nose, your eyes, you've got all these things that we get so illusioned by that is just us. And it's like, I get that that's our body, but there's so much going on. Like, where did the impulse of creativity come from? Like, you can't put your finger on that. And it sounds like you can get close enough to that point, or actually you do get to that point when you get into that zone of like, I'm creating. And like, I'd be so curious to hear what your gesture marks were on the page when you were coming out of that relationship and when you were transitioning, because I feel like this harshness and like darkness of color. But I would love to know if you'd want to like talk through that, if you can remember it clearly.
Yeah, sure. When I first got out of that relationship, I was not drawing, I was not painting, I was not doing anything because I was not connected to myself at all. Yeah. I had sacrificed a lot of myself. And so I had shut down those parts of me that were really creative. And it wasn't until about a year out of that relationship that I actually was able to start being intuitive enough about my own self, my own feelings, that I was able to put it on a canvas or put it on in a sketchbook. And when I first started abstract painting, it was very awkward. It was very timid. My gestures were not as expressive. They were not as free. I mean, you could tell that I was being calculated. I was trying really hard. And that's not really at the core of it what, it's about expression. It's not about trying to be something. It's just expressing what is in you. And my first artworks were very controlled. They were smaller. They were not as expressive. I didn't have as wide a range of colors. I would stick to certain gestures because it's what I knew, and I didn't trust myself to take it further. And now my gestures are all over the place. I have lots of different brush strokes, texture, and scratches and marks, and it's almost a dance when you're creating, especially a large piece. It's almost a dance when you are creating a really big piece, and it's just I put music on and I'm dancing and I'm singing, and it can be for hours, and I can forget to eat. I can forget to drink. I can forget to have, that I have a life outside of those moments when I'm creating those hours. And it is like what you're saying, it's sort of an otherworldly experience where you are connected to something that, because it's not about you in that moment, it's so fulfilling. It's so it is humbling, but it's also it's hard to explain. It's very, very like grounding too. It just makes you feel like
at one.
This is what it's about.
Yeah. And it makes complete sense. Like, it's so interesting because the way that you were talking about, your artwork before, it literally, I wasn't even hearing your artwork there. I was hearing your relationship of how you were in that relationship. Like, I don't know you from a bar of soap, but it was like controlled. I felt small. It felt calculated. It was like restricted. It was what the other person wanted it to be. And it's like, again, this is, you wanting to fulfill like this, to please or whatever. And it's like, and that's not what it's about. When you're passionate about something, you do it, like you said, it's an expression of what already is within you versus I need to find this thing that's special. It's like, no, you already have that within you. It's actually about clearing the crap away and feeling free enough to dance in your vulnerability and all of the fear and all of that that comes. And that is fucking beautiful. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because I'm sure that you just go nuts and it's messy, but it's like, this is me. Like, and if you can't handle that, then like, you just need to do you, and somebody will come into your world that's like, that is amazing. And I want all of that, which I'm sure is like all of your friends and family anyway for you. It'd be like, we love you because you're crazy and amazing and random and we can't quite figure you out.
Yeah, I mean, that is 100% true. I've often felt like my family can't quite figure me out. And that has always been something I've always felt my whole life. Like, I was sort of the person that people are like, oh, she's kind of weird, you know, like she's kind of out there. She's kind of, you know, but I'm also very much the person that is, I've always been pretty outspoken, but now I'm very much, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Yeah. You know, like, I have enough faith and enough belief in myself now and my own abilities that I know that, like, all I need is myself and other people. I love to have other people in my life. I love to, you know, I love my family members, I love my friends, I love, you know, coworkers, that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to it, the thing that centers me, the thing that I need to live, to be, to, you know, everything is me. Yeah. You know, it's me, and I have to have that strong core understanding that, you know, I am who I am, and it helps me creating my art. It helps me express. Like, it's interesting because I often think I chose abstract art because there is a stigma around it that people look at it and go, oh, my child could do that. You know, you hear that all the time, all the time. But I am classically trained. I did go to art school. However, this is the way that I choose to express myself. Right. I don't find enjoyment from doing things that are hyper realistic or, you know, things that are set in realism, I guess. I enjoy abstracting nature, and I enjoy abstracting thoughts and abstracting ideas. And I'm very much an introverted. I'm very much a philosophical person, and so for me, painting is part of that process of thinking through things sort of on a philosophical level. I went back to school and I have a degree in writing. And so when I was getting that degree, I was just figuring out that, like, oh, like, I like writing too. And I like writing about the same things that I like painting about. And they're very, very connected. And it's almost a similar way to express yourself. It's, you know, writing it's finding the perfect series of words connected together, the perfect sentences connected together that really show what you're feeling or trying to communicate. And it's the same thing with gestural mark making. It's the right layering of colors, the right marks, the right textures, the right, you know, the forms and shapes and all of that stuff that communicates in the same way. So it's just really an interesting, for me, a really interesting way to connect the two, thinking about, like, writing in more of an abstract way, and the art helps me think about a lot of things in life in that way too.
It kind of reminds me of a cryptic crossword where so many people don't understand it, but once you do, it's like, this is amazing. It's like you enter into this little portal, and I can imagine, like you were saying, the comments that some people say, or like, oh, my kid could do that or whatever. Like, you're going to get haters in whatever you do. I think of just people not even in your arena giving you an opinion that you don't even know where they came from. But it's like, thank you for that advice and feedback. Again, it comes to that point of, like, discerning who you start to listen to. But yeah, it just reminds me so much of a cryptic crossword, because I just remember loving doing them with my mum, and, like, she was always so good at them. I was just like, I just don't get what you mean. Like, I just don't get what's being written here. And then there was that one moment where I was like, I see what this is. And I think that's like so much for art for me when I see it, because I feel like I can't appreciate it fully until I speak to someone like you, until I speak to the artist or really know what the heck was going on in their mind. Because there's usually like a short, tiny little blurb of like their name and then the price of the painting. And I'm like, but that's come from somewhere. Like, who are they? And what was that story? Like, what's on your paintings when do you sell them? Like, is that something that
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. That's fairmadeart.com. I have a shop where I sell my paintings.
Cool.
And I sold them to people in person. And the beautiful thing for me, what I tend to have is just the title. And the title for me kind of, it's a way into what I was thinking when I was creating that art, but I'm not going to give you everything, because I want you to be able to interpret things for yourself and see in it what it could mean to you, or what, you know, those gestures or marks or those colors could inspire in you. And one of the really great things is, you know, I often have discussions with my own mom about, you know, she'll look at a painting and go, well, I see, you know, like, for example, I have a piece on my website that it's an abstract piece that it's I named it hopscotch, but she says that she sees sailboats. And for me, I find that so refreshing and so beautiful that someone could see sailboats, and I never intended that. I never saw that. That was never in my head. That was never something I would frankly never paint about sailboats, I don't think. But, you know, the fact that someone else could see sailboats and interpret that in that, like, my mom came up with the story in her own head about what that was and what that meant to her and how it related to her as a person. And there was a reason why she saw sailboats and I didn't. And for me, that's the most interesting thing about abstract art is when there's not a description about what the art is about or what it means to the artist. Oftentimes it's with abstract art, they want you to interpret it for yourself and appreciate it for yourself. And it's like it is very much like when you read a book or go see a play in the theater.
Or listen to a song.
You have an experience based on your life experiences, and you interpret that only through the lens and the view that you know. And I think that that's one of the reasons that abstract art is very hard for people, is because it makes you go inward. It makes you go deeper when you look at it. Otherwise, you just see the surface. You're only going to see what's on the surface, and you're only going to interpret what's there based on a very, surface level. If you go deeper and you let yourself really see, that's when the appreciation for abstract art really happens. And it's a beautiful thing when you can see someone who has never appreciated that kind of art ever, and they finally see something and it finally clicks, and then they're like, let's go look at the next one. Let's go look at the next one. Because they just are, all of a sudden something is clicked, and they're like, I get it. It's about what it does for me. It's about what it's giving to me. It's about what I see. And that's exactly what it is. It's almost like a guide for you to see yourself in your own story. And it's just basically someone telling the story in a different way that you can relate to and interpret it your own way.
And pictures, just visual. I think so many people come from that aspect of what we're taking in with our eyes is just such a powerful way into our soul as well, of again, what we look at in other people is what, if I go, I love this quality in you, it's a quality that, I can recognize within myself that I'm connected to. Or, if I'm looking at you and I'm like, oh, I just don't resonate, or I don't like that, it's like there's an element there that I'm disconnected with. So I guess with artwork it's a bit the same. When people are looking at things like, oh, this is just a canvas or whatever, but then the other ones who just go, like you said, I get it, it must be amazing to be in person with those people and just to observe them, because you are an introvert. So naturally, I know you would want to stand back and just let them be. And like, if they wanted to come to you, like, great. But I'm sure the enjoyment comes when it's just like, welcome to my humble abode, and just kind of people watch them as they discover themselves and discover stories that you didn't even know were possible. It's like, wow, that's so epic.
That's what's the most interesting to me, when I see people seeing my art, not just looking at it, but seeing it. And not because they're seeing me or seeing what I put on a canvas or what I interpreted or what, it's fine to want to know that about me, because I think it's interesting. I want to know that about other artists too. Like, I'm so fascinated. There's a really famous female abstract expressionist, Joan Mitchell, and I'm so fascinated by her work. And she's gotten a lot of criticism that, again, it looks like a child's work. It could be this, it could be that. It's not really art. It's not. That's a common thing with a lot of, but a lot of abstract artists are classically trained. And it's really hard to not make something look real. If you sit down and try to make something abstracted, you'll figure out that it's really hard to take the parts of things away and move them away from each other, and then express those individual parts of something independently and layer those on top of each other. So they don't look real, but they are an expression of an emotion, an expression of a vibe or a feeling or a movement. But it's the most fascinating thing and I like to do this when I just I love going to art museums, and I can't wait till we can go back to doing museum things and be with people. But that's one of my favorite things to do, is to go to museums and just watch people look at art. And it's often really interesting observing people when you specifically go into an exhibition that is an abstract exhibition. And at first you'll see people kind of walk around and kind of I don't really okay, but then there's the times when they slow down and they look, and then they look again, and then they move closer, and then they look a little harder, and you can see the wheels turning. You can see them going, I wonder if this is about this, because this is what this is for me. This is what I see. And the thing that's really cool is when people get it, they get it. It doesn't matter what it was when they made it. It matters what it is now and how I'm interpreting it. Because really, as an artist, writing, creating, doing anything, like painting, anything, your job is really the process of making it. For me, that's how I feel. My job is the process for making it. Once it's out in the world, I have no control over how people interpret it. I have no control over what they see or how they see it or what they like or don't like. For me, the process of making it was what was rewarding for me. I love the final product too. I appreciate that a lot, because after all, we wouldn't have art if there wasn't a final product in the way that paintings are. But it's the process. It's the process of my creating is similar to what I see in people's faces when they're figuring it out for themselves. It's that process of recognition and that process of really going inward that is so rewarding for me when I see people interpreting any kind of art, not just my art.
And it's like a legacy to leave on, really, as well, because it's a timeless piece of interpretation. And like, if you put just, if you painted a dog, like you said, you paint what is obvious, or like an obvious story, then that story comes to completion in that picture. Whereas when you leave it that bit open-ended, it can be generational, it can be in different eras, it can be at different stages of life. And it's like, you can pick that up, or you can have that in your house and go, like, it's like any kind of art. Like I always think sort of in music a lot, but that sort of timeless feeling of like, oh, at that time that really meant this to me, but now I'm looking at this in a deeper way, and it's because we're looking at ourselves in a deeper and more connected way. And I'm curious to know whether you know, art has been the only way that you've really kind of moved through a lot of personal development, or like has there been any other teachings or mentors that you've drawn on outside of your artwork for that?
Well, I am kind of, like I said before, I'm an introverted person.
Yeah.
So I'm very introspective. I'm very philosophical. So I do read a lot. I read a lot about beliefs, religion, spirituality. I read a lot about all that kinds of stuff. And it does, you know, it makes me curious. It makes me think. But for me, like, the actual process of working out my shit, basically, is the creating of the art. I've kept a journal since I was little. I can't remember what exactly what it is, but like 11 or 12. Yeah. I've kept a journal, like, and I've written the journal every single day for my entire life. And that in of itself is a really great way to look at when you go back and look at your journals. It's like, like I didn't even realize that I was dealing with some stuff that now I can see it's a really great tool to see your own growth. It's a really great tool to see. I didn't know because I was in the thick of it at the time, but stuff was being figured out. Stuff was being resolved. It just took time, you know? But I've mainly been influenced by other artists. I'm a very, very visual learner. And so for me, like when I read things, I even like the things that I remember is not the actual interpretation of the words. I see the words on the page and that's how I remember them. And so I'm a really visual person in that way. Like, if you can put something in a picture, if you can put something out in a visual way, I will always remember it in that way. And so for me, other artists, visual artists, really, really inspire me. And they have, when I see another artist's work, I'm instantly like, oh, I have a hankering to go create. I just want to create because it inspires me so much. Because for me, seeing other artists' work is akin to reading a book on Buddhism or reading, you know, a philosopher's theories. Like, I can see that kind of thing in another artist's work, and it makes me think about things on those same levels. And I often, because I went to school for writing and, you know, studying other writers is part of what you do, and really extensively reading literature and all that is part of what you do. You learn to analyze and take apart things, which is really interesting because that's abstraction. You analyze and you take things apart and then put them back together in a different way that expresses how you interpreted that thing. And so it's really it's a very visual representation of like what happens to me when I read a story. Like when I read Frankenstein, for example, like what I think about and how I interpret things, and I can take those individual, you know, how we can look at a story and go, well, this is what the author meant when they wrote this, and this, and that's our modern day interpretation. And it's a really interesting thing taking a story apart and thinking about like this particular paragraph is really powerful because, you know, whatever. And thinking about what that means in that particular section of the story. And then taking that and thinking about like, how can I take apart other things in that same way? How can I take apart, and not just things in books and things in magazines or things online, but like visual things. How can I take that apart? For example, when I go, I'm very inspired. I'm a pretty avid hiker and trail runner. I haven't been able to do it for a while because I have a couple injuries, but when I'm out in nature, I will look at things, and it's often behind a camera. I'm not gonna lie, I take my camera everywhere. And so I am sort of behind find a lens and I see things in a different way. And I will look at that, a particular, like the way that the river is flowing, and I will relate that to a feeling that the river flowing makes me feel about a situation that I'm going through, or a relationship I have with a person, or anything like that. And I've abstracted that visual thing and related it to part of me. And to me, it's like, it's very interesting to do that with, you know, all I do with people too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's a really interesting way to think about how to look at the world and how to find more meaning in it for yourself, and how to, I guess, sort of find your place in every place that you go, because you can interpret and you can fit yourself into, this is how this mirrors this for me, or this is how this reflects this for me. This is how I fit into this when I'm out for a hike, or when I'm up in the mountains. This is how I fit into nature right now, because this makes me feel alive. This makes me feel like I'm part of something connected to something bigger. And feeling those abstracted things, those things that you can pull out from your feelings and being in places and doing things with people, it's really at the core of what I'm trying to put on canvas, I guess.
And babe, like, you are the cool thing about that, as well as like remembering that when you're there taking a photograph of the river, it's like in that moment someone could be taking a photograph of you, and it's this like inception mode of you are both creating art, but you are the art always. Like you are a picture in this world that,
oh, I love that.
yeah, I was just thinking that, like, this third eye kind of view of like you taking a picture, but it's like you're thinking, you're creating that, but it's like such a trail, like you just, and I guess you never know who is watching you as well. And it's this reminder of like, if you can choose to see things through the lens of a beautiful newness or different perspective, or seeing something through the lens of love, like whether it's through your camera, it doesn't matter. It's like, that's just such a beautiful way to move into the world, because we could choose to look at the world in so many less than constructive ways that are already being done. But if, you know, we ultimately are the story that we create, so why not make a freaking cool one, I say.
Yes, I love that. I think that that's so beautiful, that you, no matter what you're interpreting, no matter what you're trying to create art-wise, you are the art. Your interpretation is the art. Your being is the art.
Yeah.
It reminds me of how when we're kids, we're able to, if you ever look at a child's art, it's always so expressive and really colorful, and they very much abstract their own thoughts and put them down on paper in a way that you're like, my kid is a genius.
Yes.
Like, my kid is a genius. And it's because they don't have that judgment that we attain as adults.
Right.
They don't have that thing inside them telling them, this is shit. This is not good. Don't express yourself in this way, because no one will get it. No one will like it. They're not doing it because they want someone to, I mean, they might be on some level, they want someone to like it, like their teacher or their parent, or mom, look at this, or dad, look at this. But they're just in the moment making. They are the art. They are the, you know, they're just being. And that is so beautiful. And that is, to me, it's like, if you can continue and try always to look at the world from, you know, that beginner's mind or that child's mind that is always like, what does this mean? What does this mean? You know, like the 4-year-old that's always like, why? But why?
But why?
But why? You know, and that's the most interesting thing to me. And we sort of drop that as adults, because it either is, I need to stop asking because I'm annoying people, but, you know, because I'm asking, but why? Or it's, I don't care enough, I'm too busy, I don't need to know why. Right. You know, I just need to move through my world. You know, and I think that being able to stop and think like what you were just saying. Think about like where you are in the world and who could be seeing you and who could be interpreting you and how you were seeing things. And not being afraid to ask, but why?
But
why do I feel that way? But why do I see that? But why does that look that way to me? You know? And that's really beautiful to be constantly imagining your world and what that world could be to other people too.
When my sister and I were younger, we're super, super close. We're like twins, but she has brown hair and brown eyes. And I would ask her and I would say, like, what do you see with your eyes? Like, because they're brown. And I'm like, surely you must see something different because they're different colors. And she would tell me all of these amazing stories. And then I would tell her what I saw. And we'd have all of these cute little stories. Like, she'd tell me she was adopted from India as well. I was so gullible, and I love her so much that, you know, anything and everything went with her. But I thought that's even a really cool concept because, like, you know, even just seeing the fact that someone has different colored eyes is like an impulsive thought to go, well, like, how do you actually view light through there? Or how do you view images through there? Or the shape of your eye? Like, what does it look like? Yeah, it's so cool.
Sorry, that dog barking.
That's fine.
I have my window open. It's morning here and it's nice and cool.
I could hear the little birds chirping.
You can hear the birds again. There's some pretty aggressive robins out here. They really like to make some noise. It starts at about 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Good thing I'm an early riser.
Yeah, 100%.
But I love the way that the story that you were just telling about what do you see through your eyes, because your eyes look different. Surely they must be different.
Right.
You must have a different view of the world, and that is so true. We all have a different view of the world, not because we look different, just because we are different.
Right.
Even if you're twins, identical twins, you have a different view, you know?
Right.
And that's really interesting. And that, like I said, that's a very, you know, that's a child's interpretation of something. And how beautiful is that? And it's very actually philosophical and very like thought-provoking to think, tell me what you see behind your eyes, because your eyes are different than mine, so your world is different.
Definitely.
That's so beautiful.
I'll show you a little photo. This is like, I've got it in my room. So I moved here to be back with my sister this year because I was living in Tasmania for 6 years, and they'd set up my room for when I came to live with them. It's like my favorite photo. It's in my room, and I don't know, I love that it's in there. Like, she's just the best. But yeah, I don't know, it's just it's a cool thing. And I think, yeah, I'm sure that you're a deep little thinker at your young ages as well. Like you were saying, you were writing journals at 11, and it'd be funny to be a fly on the wall, I think, growing up for introverted folks. Like, I feel like I'm quite extrovert in a lot of ways, but I think my nature at core is to introvert and to really recharge by myself and to do things like yourself, like go for a hike, or, you know, be deep in immersion of art or music or writing. And it's like such a beautiful space to be in when you can comfortably or uncomfortably be there by yourself and just go like, oh, it's just you and me, like it's just you and me, the paper and the pen or the artwork. And it's I'd love to know, like, how do you vibe yourself when you feel this like huge creative impulse coming on? Do you like get in certain clothes, or like do you put certain makeup on, or go and grab a coffee, or put epic tunes on? Like, I want to know what it's like to be in your world when that moment comes.
It's often like I have a schedule because I need to, it's just part of one of the ways that it's part of my job. And so I have a schedule that, you know, I get up I'm a very, very early riser.
Same.
I'm usually up at about 4:30-ish.
Yeah.
And I am most creative in the early morning.
Yeah.
And so I do create in the afternoon sometimes too. But I have painting clothes that I put on that I kind of know that when I put those clothes on, that I'm in that mindset. I used to let myself be really inspired by, like, I would go on social media and go on Instagram and go on Pinterest and look at things and feel like, oh, I really want to create because I'm so inspired by it. But I've stopped doing that because I want to create based on what's inside me and what I'm feeling, and not let other things sort of influence that.
Yeah.
And so I'll put on my painting clothes. I have 3 or 4 different playlists that I like. I really enjoy painting when I'm in a mood. And when I'm in a mood, I mean like when I'm sort of somber or sort of in a depressive or, a little bit of a self-pity mood. I like to listen to like atmospheric, sort of gothic atmospheric.
Like instrumental?
What's that?
Instrumental kind of vibe or words? Yeah.
I create best here's the weird thing. It's either, my very favorite thing to listen to is jazz. I listen to all different kinds of jazz. Specifically, my very favorite thing to paint to is Miles Davis, his album So What, or that specific song So What. I enjoy jazz like so much when I'm painting, but I also enjoy listening to podcasts of other artists talk about their process, and that's me just hearing that, not seeing what they're doing, but hearing about how they create what they're doing. That really inspires me to like get going and create and make stuff. I really want to paint when I hear other artists talking about how they make stuff. But the thing that I do is I have earbuds that I put in, and they're noise canceling earbuds. And so whenever I'm listening to something that has words, or even if it doesn't have words, sometimes I'm just making my own up, because I'm in such a place of non-judgment. I'm such in a place of just sort of artistic flow that I'm not thinking about what's coming out of my mouth at all. And I feel bad for the people who live with me, because I am singing and they are hearing, and it's not good. Not good.
I need to be there.
I own that. I am not a singer.
Yes.
But, it is what it is. But I'm so happy. I'm so in that moment that I could, frankly, give a shit who hears me.
Right.
I don't care, because I am so all about what I'm doing, and I'm so all about like being free and feeling like, this is what this is what I crave. This is what it's all about. But I do, like I have to wear glasses to see for the most part. Otherwise, I can't paint.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like not abstract, guys. It's a mess.
Yeah. I've often joked with Mr. Rogers. I have a sweater that I put on. I have specific shoes that I wear. And so, like, I come into the studio and I change all my clothes, and I change into like Painter Sarah.
Yeah.
Because really, I'm not always that person all day, every day. I can't be. I can't be the painter. God, my hair is bugging me. I can't be.
I'm loving your
Sarah,
hair.
because the Painter Sarah is not someone who can be with people or around people a lot. I'm really like in a zone when I'm painting. And so for me to put on all separate clothes, put on different glasses, put in earbuds, put in, it's almost like I become this persona, I get into this world that is my painting world, my creating world. But it's I will bring food, I will bring water, or something to drink, but often that gets untouched.
Yeah.
I've just been so busy, I forget that it's even there. So into what I'm doing that I forget, like, you haven't eaten for 4 hours? You probably should get some sustenance before you faint. That happens all the time. I'm like, why do I feel like that? Because you haven't eaten in 6 hours. That's why.
Yes.
Come on.
You've probably been sweating too, like working as well, because when you're in creative flow, it can feel really easy, but at the same time it's like because you get so lost of how much energy you're putting out, and like being an introvert, energy is something that you need to recharge of like, okay, I actually need to, whoa.
And painting is something I do to recharge.
Yeah.
Even being around the people that I live with for an hour's long conversation, I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I need to go do something for me.
Yeah.
It's just about like me being alone with my thoughts. That's how I recharge. That's how I, enough to be with other people, I guess, and enough to be in the world and talk and be and do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as an introverted person, that I do use a lot of energy when I paint. If I'm in if I'm doing a really large canvas, those are the ones that take up the most energy because I'm moving my body. I'm really getting into it, and I'm in a space where it's just like, there's sometimes I'll stop and I'm like, oh, you're breathing kind of like, are you okay? Like I was just going, and I was in it, scrubbing, moving, doing stuff, and sometimes I realize, like you need to probably calm down and have a drink of something, like it gets intense sometimes, and that's why I love it. It's my way to express myself. It's my way to like just get in it.
Do you have those moments where you like wake up or walk away and you're like, fuck, like I'm really sore, like what happened yesterday? It's like, oh, that's right, I threw myself on the wall and around the room.
Like I paint on with the painting upwards on an easel, but I also lay it flat on the floor. So if it's been a day where I've been doing a lot of like bending over and stand up and bending over and stand up, I'm like, why are my hamstrings hurt? I'm like, oh, because you spent 6 hours yesterday bending over and standing up and bending over and standing up and then squatting and standing and then squat. I'm like, maybe I should be working that out a little bit more because that was not good. Yeah, I mean, there are days, and there's also days when it's funny because when you're doing it and when you're in it, you're not judging yourself.
Right.
But there are days when you come back and you're like,
what happened here?
I'm not sure what I was thinking because that's shit. That is not good. But then there are some days when I come back and I'm like I am part of the universe. I get it all.
Right.
I'm not, but there are times when I feel like I just painted like the message from above. Like that was great.
But with like
few and far between when I feel like that,
so like I feel like that's more of a state of where you're mentally at when you come to it and go, that's shit or whatever, because it's like you were obviously in like a state then where it flowed, and then to come back to it and go, oh, that's crap or whatever, it's like surely that has to reflect the state you're in then versus the times when you're turning up to your painting and going like, this is like literally, I'm a genius, this is amazing, like and not in that egotistical way, but just kind of like, no, like I'm really proud of myself and I can see the process here. Like what goes through your head when you're just like, this is crap? Is it more so like I don't see flow here, or I'm not happy with the gestures, or what is it in particular?
At least this is what I feel like happens for me. When I'm in the moment and I'm creating art, that judgmental, analytical mind, that logical part of me, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like I am just in the moment, I'm creating, and it's a different world. And then when I come back to it, say hours later or days later, I have been influenced by the world. I've been influenced by lots of things, and there are, and it also depends how much social media I've been on, how much TV I've watched, how much news I've been ingesting, how much, all of that, but when I come back, that analytical mind has often been turned on when I'm coming back to my art because I'm not yet in that flow state, because it takes a little bit to get into that for me.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, even though I might be like, ooh, that's shit, I'll leave it alone because I might just be in a mood.
Yeah.
I might just be in a place where I can't accept what I did, or I can't see what I did. And I might be in a mood where, frankly, I am having a lot of self-doubt, or I'm not okay with, like, I'm having a day where I don't like anything about anything that I touch. Like, when you have a day where you're like, everything's turning to shit today. Like, it's a terrible day. I can't do anything right. And, those are days when I try not to go back and look at my work at all, because that's when I'm overly critical. And that's when I will immediately, like, take paint to canvas and ruin something that's organic, ruin something that was really actually beautiful. And I have to just leave it alone. There are some days when I just have to. And I've realized that about myself, that, there are more days than not when I'm very overly critical about my work.
Yeah.
Because I am my worst critic. I am my worst. That's bad. But, there are those days when it's the days when I'm usually in the studio all day long for hours and hours on end, that I can go back to something that I did 3 hours earlier. And I'm an acrylic painter. When I do use paints, it's acrylic paints, so they dry relatively fast, pretty fast actually. And so I can go back to things and like, oh, I added a layer to this, and go back and look at things, not even hours, minutes later. But it's the days that I'm in the studio for a long time that I'm less critical, because I'm in it and around it, and I'm not separating myself from it. And I am looking at it in a different way. And now I do think that there is definitely a benefit of getting some distance from your art for a while, especially if you're in a place where you feel like you're a little bit blocked, or you're a little bit repetitive, or you're bored with what you're doing.
Right.
Getting some space is always good to look at your work from a different perspective. That's always beneficial. But, I think as artists, we tend to be our own worst critic. We're overcritical of what we do. We're overcritical of, how things are coming across, and how, this isn't what I meant for it to be. This isn't what I wanted to say when I did this. This isn't what, and sometimes I'm not even thinking that at all. Sometimes I'm like, I just made to make, and it's beautiful just because of that. Art doesn't have to have a deep meaning to just be beautiful. It can be aesthetically pleasing. And creating fine art, as I do, it has an aesthetic. It has a reaction that people like it because it's beautiful to them, or it's not beautiful. Sometimes art, people like it because it's not beautiful to them, because it unsettles them, or it makes them, it's not beautiful, it just makes them think about something. And that's the only reason they like it. And that is beautiful too. That's really great when someone's like, I don't appreciate it because you used teal next to orange, and they're complementary colors and they look great. They don't care about any of that. They don't care about that. They just care about how that made them feel when they looked at it, because they made them think about that one time that they had their first kiss in a car, and somebody that walked by had teal and orange on, and that's the memory that they have in their head.
Exactly. And again, so in that moment, it's not about you anymore either. It's their interpretation, because like we can get so bogged down in our own skills or our own passion and go, I'm not giving them as much as they deserve or need. It's like what they need in that moment is for you to show your authenticity and vulnerability, or whatever it is. And that piece in that moment, it gives them a story that you don't even know exists yet. And then that happens and you're like, this is that reminder to get out of my own head and to again see things through the lens of a different perspective. And while I find it interesting, like you being in the studio like allows you to be less judgmental, whereas like I feel like as well something that would be helpful when you're in those states of not liking what you do or getting into self-doubt is like to go out into nature and to take your camera and go, how can I change my perspective in this moment? And it doesn't mean like not sitting with the emotion at all, but it's like, how can I turn this into something that is a little bit more constructive, because again, we can just tell ourselves so many stories on repeat and get ourselves almost in a really depressive state that's like, oh, this will be my muse to paint, or this will be my muse to write. It's like, no, doesn't have to be.
Well, and yeah, and because I have pretty severe anxiety, and so getting myself in that circle of self-doubt and self-hate and whatever, the bad stuff, like it's not hard for me to get stuck in that.
Yeah.
And it's not hard for me to wrap myself up in that little cyclone of bad.
Yeah.
And just go. And so for me, like you said, going into nature when I'm feeling very self-critical and I'm feeling very, maybe a little too self-aware, when I'm like, I'm being indulgent. Getting in nature, it puts things in perspective, and it makes me, like I was saying earlier, you sort of abstract things from nature, and it makes you relate them in a way that's not about you. It's about how you, the world and you connect, I guess. At least that's the way it is for me. When I'm in nature, it's about the connection that I'm feeling in that moment and what I see and what that means to me. What, it's not about like my identity and who I am on social media or whatever, or who I am as an artist, because that is, I think that a thing that a lot of artists can get stuck in, like, who am I as an artist? I have to, the thinking man, like, who am I? And I am who I am. And this is what, I express myself the way I express myself. And like I said earlier, abstract artist really helped me get to a point where it's like, I don't have to be something for people to appreciate my work. Because my work is not me, it's my work. It is an interpretation of the things I see and feel and hear and experience and whatever, but it's not me. And so I can create it and make it, that part's for me. That 100%, the process of making, the process of doing, that is for me. Yes. That is when I am, I'm feeling it, I'm in it, I'm creating, I'm doing, and that can't be for anybody else because it's a personal experience, right?
Totally.
And so that's the part that, I can get that is the most freeing, because that's the part that's for me. And if you let yourself get stuck in the other part of what will this mean for other people? What does this mean to me, like to how people interpret me as an artist, I guess? That's when you have to kind of go, I need to take a step back. Because for me, it's not about that. Like, I love that people appreciate my art, that want to buy my art, that like I said, a girl gotta eat. I want people to love my art, if that's to pay for it. But, in any creative endeavor, job, career, whatever, you have to realize that, like, you can't be for everybody. Nobody is for everybody.
Right.
And, there's going to be people who love my stuff. There's going to be people who look at it and go, are you kidding me? Like, you think you're an artist? Like, it's fine. I cannot be some people's taste. I'm down with that. There are a lot of people who are not my taste.
Yeah.
But to let myself get in a spiral about, like, who's not going to like this? Who's not going to see this for what I'm trying to say? Who's going to think that this is shit? Who's going to, other than myself, because, like I said, I'm my biggest critic. But if I let myself get wrapped up in the results of something, that's when I know it's not going to be good. And there's sometimes when I'm in the studio that I go back and look at my stuff, and if I'm saying it's shit, usually it has that kind of influence, like, I was trying too hard. I was trying too hard. I was trying to, I wasn't really in the flow. Like, I can tell when I've really been in the flow of doing something for the process of making. And I can tell when I was like, this is a little contrived. I must have been not in it as much.
Yeah. Something that I thought of before, of like just a little formula that I like to use in terms of just anything in life is like creating before consuming. And it's like, I think of it in terms of how I eat a meal. It's like I don't consume it before it's made. And like you were saying, not engaging, no, it's like not engaging on social media, but not looking to that as what you're going to copy or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, you can use it for inspiration, but as well, like challenge yourself to like feel uncomfortable of not knowing what you're going to paint or write or sing or draw, and sit with that for a bit. Like I feel like you'd have a similar approach to what I'm saying here. It's like really just hone into what your true passion is in creating before you start consuming all of this stuff that you could so easily find so many people's artwork and go like, oh my God, there's so much, like I could put all this in here. But what really does define you, what really does make you unique in the way that you like turn up to the studio or the way that you create your story around that artwork?
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's a lot easier now than it used to be as an artist to be influenced and inundated with imagery and other artists' work and all of that. And so I definitely do try to create before I consume anything. You know, and you got to separate it out. At least I do as a business. There are days that I create, and then there are days that I do the social media business stuff.
Yeah.
Because I have to let my mind have a space that's free of all that, because that's a lot. Social media is a lot.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot of overstimulation, and it's a lot of, sometimes I think, you know, I can see some of the stuff and think I'm inspired and think like, oh, that's really inspired, but I'm just really overstimulated, and I'm just in a sort of hyper anxiety, because social media creates anxiety for me, just already. And it's not really like the state of me being, and as much as I really hate the word inspired because it's so overused, but when I'm in that, it's not really about at all the things that I've seen that other people have made, the things that, you know, the pieces of art that I really appreciate and love, and like the way that they use color. When I'm in it and I'm really inspired and I'm really in my own creative flow, it's about all the stuff that's going on up here. You know, it's about how I'm trying to work through a feeling through combining colors, or I'm trying to work through drama with a friendship, or I'm trying to work through a hardship in a relationship and missing someone so much you can't breathe, and so you have to put it on a canvas. You know, I mean, it's all subjective, you know, but it's for me, it's how I breathe, I guess, now. It didn't used to be. It used to be, you know, there's a lot of the things I did in life. And now for me, like, it's just sort of how I relate to the world. It's how I mean, I go to the movies, I eat crap, I do everything like everybody else. But for me, this is how I, you know, I figure out what the world means to me and how I can be in it. You know?
I love that. It feels. You go.
It's become my tool, my way of engaging, my way of talking, my way of just being. And it's, you know, some people might be like, it's hippy dippy, it's really funny, it's so, you know, but
it's
for
you.
me, I find so much joy in it that I'm sorry, I'm hippy dippy, cool, I'm already starting, you know, you know.
Exactly. Cool. And to embrace that side of yourself, I love that you can do it. And like thinking in terms of I guess like wrapping this up, to leave our viewers and listeners with the message of what your legacy is that you wish to leave behind. Have you ever thought about that?
You know, I do think about that when I think about that are in my life and what I want them to get from art, my art specifically, and how I would like them to interpret art through how they interpret my work. So I often do think about that when I think about kids, and I think about like what I want to leave them. And I guess the one thing that really, for me, that is the most important thing for me about art is if you can embrace thinking about things in a different way, it will empower you beyond what you could have ever imagined. If you can embrace seeing the world in a way that you are not used to, or in a way that doesn't come naturally to you, it will flip a switch that will just ignite a whole different view of the world that is just so bright and colorful and just so much more than what you thought it could be. And to me, that's what art has always been for me, as a way to empower me and a way for me to feel empowered in myself, in my body, and appreciate who I am in this body and in this life that I've been given. So that would be my thing, I guess. It's just how empowered and how great and fulfilling it is to see the world differently.
Boom. I love that, girl. And now I'm going to include in the show notes where people can find you, but in terms of reaching out to really connect with you, what would be the best spot for them? Like, is it Instagram, Facebook, or is it email? Like, where's the spot?
Yeah, you can always go to my website. You can always contact me through my website. There's a contact form, or you can email me at sarah@sarahmaysart.com. I'm always on Instagram, and that's artist_Sarah Mays.
Perfect.
I'm always on Instagram. I post daily, multiple times a day. And I love having discussions about art and talking about stuff. And, so yeah, Instagram was a great place to reach me too.
Yes. If anyone's like connected with Sarah's story, or just the general awesome vibes that she gives out, and like, it's like, I feel like you've got a mix of like the queen and diva vibes, but can also go into like philosophical roots. And I'm like, I can so dance with this. I love it. And if anybody else is the same, like, reach out. Honestly, I just reached out to Sarah, or I can't even remember if you reached out to me. I'm sure it was me reaching out to you. And yeah, we just connected. It was like, come chat, let's hang out. And it was instantly just really great vibes. She's a very deep thinker. If you're someone who loves that kind of stuff in terms of art or just life, I'm sure that, she'd be someone who would love to connect you with more things in the art world, or just really just connect and say hey, because I think that's what it's all about when we're segregated in so many different parts of the world, but we have this beautiful access to technology like we do here. It's like, oh, I get to see your face, I get to talk to you about all of these things. I'm like, I honestly could chat all night. I think we might have to have a sequel to this chat, because I really, really want to connect with you again, girl. Thank you so much for your time and energy.
I love this stuff. Yes. Yeah, I'm an introvert, but I'm also a talker. You get me going, you're like, oh, she should publish it.
I'm the same. Just like, but it's like with people that you vibe with too, of like, because there's some times where it's like, oh, this is too much energy, and then there's other times where you're like, literally, I don't know where those 3 hours went. Like, how did we get here? What's happening?
Yes. And that's the best connections to have, right?
Yeah.
People you're just like, I was just able to go to another realm of discussion, and I don't even know he's gone through a bottle of wine, a whole meal, like, cool. Like, this is it, like, I love it when that happens.
Yeah, you're like, I literally told them everything and I didn't even think it was weird, and then we've said I love you and it's like 10 minutes in. It's like, I love that feeling.
I just told you my life my story and didn't even regret it.
Exactly. I'm good. How are you feeling? They're like, I'm backing away slowly. I have to ask, what star sign are you?
I'm Capricorn.
Capricorn. So was the last lady I just had on. That's really interesting. Cool. I have nothing to say to that.
Because I've never really resonates with me. I always think that, like, I've always asked my mom, was I supposed to be born? Maybe, like, was I late? Was I early? Because I don't really feel like I resonate. I mean, I kind of do on some level. Like, I'm really kind of a control freak.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that I would choose to be an abstract expressionist, not a control freak.
Seems so you. I would love to know what your ascending sign is. Like your rising sign might present that more accurately for you, because the ascending sign in astrology is essentially like how you came into the world. Like I'm a Gemini, and that really fits my how I am and interact in this world. But my rising sign of how I actually like entered the portal into the world is Sagittarius, which is like capital T truth, of like, you know, religious practices of like, I'm not religious, but I have like my spiritual practices and like really needing to know all the ins and outs of everything. So yeah, you should look up if you know what time you were born.
Oh, I was born at 10:30 at night. So
I think I was no.
Yeah. All I know is I've been told all these years that I was born in the middle of a football game that they were rather enjoying, and you know, they would have liked if I could have just waited a couple hours. But I was like, yeah, I'm not really a sports person, so I was just letting you know that, like, I'm gonna interrupt this. I'm on my schedule.
Yeah, you're not really someone who's like, oh, there was plans. Cool, I'm gonna wreck that. Hi guys, I'm Sarah, and I'll be coming in at 0 years old and telling you what to do.
Pretty much.
I love it.
I told my family still to this day, they're like, we're not going to get you. And I'm like, cool. That's, you know, I don't really get me sometimes either. You know, it's fine.
Oh, I love it. I feel like I get you, but because I don't, it's this weird, I feel like I'm creating a meme inside my head.
I'm fine being a meme. It's cool. I'm not the ones that go spiral because it's terrible. You know, I'd probably be one that uses like the little girls like.
Yes.
You know, like,
totally. I love that you get that.
The emoji I use most. Like,
exactly.
Like, you know.
I feel like you look like the laughing cry is so that one, but I feel like you've got like the right hair for like those little emojis that they're like, oh man, or like, yeah.
I'm the one in front of the computer. I'm a little artist one with the beret. Yeah, I'm the one that does like this. I have this, like, I don't know. Yeah. So,
oh my
God.
god.
I like to shave my head right now because my hair is just driving me nuts.
So funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's reconvene this chat. Otherwise, I literally will talk to you until it's almost morning here. And I am going to get some shut-eye. And I have just loved this chat so much.
Yes, I will speak to you later.
You. Take care, beautiful soul. Really loved it.
Love you too.
Bye.